and then some case study stuff. And I'm going to talk a bit about some of the kind of ethical concerns around using this stuff as well. So let me dive in and then we'll just get going. Now, I always have trouble sharing my screen. So let's try and do that first. 2 seconds.
No problem.
Where's the PowerPoint?
Should just be the tab in the middle.
Yeah, that's it. Got it. Right. So can you see that? Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just make it go full screen. Okay. So, if it's okay on that. Oops. Sorry, I'm just getting rid of all the crap that Zoom puts on my screen so I can actually see what I'm doing. Can I minimize that? Hide floating. Right, cool. Okay. So this is a kind of version of a talk that I've given a couple of times. I was in Belfast recently at a conference talking about it. I went to the States to do some work at the University of North Carolina to talk about this stuff as well. I mean, the only reason why I kind of know a bit more about this than maybe some of my academic colleagues is because I'm just interested as a creative, right? So what's been revealing by going to talk to different institutions and at conferences is that there's a kind of general anxiety about this stuff, ranging from it's not authentic because a human didn't do it. It's not authentic to make, illustrations, say, with it because a human didn't do it. 2, it's fed on copyrighted images. I'm not using it. 2, it's going to take my job away from me. So I don't have the answers to that stuff, but I have views, which I'm happy to share with you today. So my name is Russell Miller. I'm an associate professor in Kingston School of Art in the Creative Industries Department. My background is in design, pretty much 100% digital. I've done bits of print and bits of live, but mostly I've worked for brands like this in-house or running my own studio as a digital kind of visual communications designer / art director. I've got a art practice as well, where I'm interested in sort of moving image and latterly sort of generative AI and kind of graphic novel creation and bits of filmmaking as well. So my art practice has changed because of generative AI, and my design practice has changed because of generative AI as well. So bit of interaction, if I can make this work. Should we make a song? Right. So this is just to give you a fun intro into what prompts are and how kind of amazing some of this stuff is. So you're gonna have to shout out, can't see the screen, but we're gonna need a genre and a subject and a mood. So like a genre, like metal or pop or hip hop. What genre should we have? And I'll just type it. A hip hop, right? A hip hop song about what? A hip song, hang on, hip hop song about, what's it about? What subject? Is it about roller skating or the snow? What's it about?
Going on holiday.
A hip hop song about going on holiday. And is it an angry song? Is it a sad song? Is it a happy song? What's the mood? What's the emotion?
I think let's go with a happy one.
A happy hip hop song about going on holiday. Should we give it a destination? Going on holiday to?
The temptation there was to sing, "Whoa, Ibiza."
Do you want to go with Ibiza?
Why not? Everyone wants to go with Ibiza.
All right. A happy hip hop song about going on holiday to Ibiza. I feel like it's been covered, but we'll cover it. So what we've just done now is written a prompt. Okay. So a prompt is a set of words that tells the AI to make something. It gives it some direction. The reason why we're making a song is it's immediate and it's quite a powerful thing when you see what it does. And I think the other thing is just to do with the pace of change of these softwares. 6 months ago, this wasn't possible. So I was messing around with a different bit of software, trying to make some techno, and you would say, so make me a techno tune like this, and it couldn't make it. It sort of made an approximation of what techno is, whereas now it would make techno. Okay, so it does 2 versions, and it gives us lyrics, and it gives us a cover. So I'm going to play it, and I hope you can hear it.
Woke up early, shoes in the glow. My bags are professionally flow. Sun and sea, it makes me sweet. This life a dream can't be beat. Keep the plane, my crush.
Like, so,
Laughing loud, we got no fear.
you know, it's not, it's kind of believable as a song, right? What do we think about this? Not in terms of our kind of taste, but it's a happy hip hop song about Ibiza that you could probably hear on Capital FM, no?
There's a comment here saying it could go to #1.
Could go to #1. Maybe we'll all
Yeah.
make some money. So let's listen to the second version that it does as well. So same lyrics, gives it a different version.
My bags are easy to hear we flow. Sun and sea and being so sweet. This life a dream can't be beat. Hit the plane, my crew right here. Laughing loud, we got no fear.
Like an Eminem version, maybe.
The nights we coming through. Party lights, dance all night. Feel like I'm feeling right. My beats just calling, hear the sound. Euphoria all around.
Okay, so it's quite scary that it can do this stuff, I think. But what I think is really interested as a creative about it is that if I sat down at home and went, right, I'm going to write a happy hip hop song about going to Ibiza, I would struggle to begin, right? I'm not a songwriter. I can play piano, but I would struggle to go, I'd maybe write the lyrics. I would struggle to, could you see the app, by the way, when I shared that? Could you see the actual page?
No, not the page.
Right.
Just the slideshow. So we couldn't.
Let me see if I can I do this? I might have to come out of this a little bit. So if I go share, 2 seconds, I should have thought about this, but I'll do a new share. Oh, here it is, right. So this is Suno. Can you see that now, yeah?
Yeah, brilliant.
Right, okay, so what we did was, what I did was it gone? Create, right. So I typed it in here, right? This is what I typed in. That's all I did. We made this together. I pressed create and it made these 2 versions. And then what we get is the lyrics all written out. And a cover, and then the actual tune where we've listened to a couple of versions of them. Now, I think that as a way of getting off that first blank page stage, this is really good stuff for creatives, because there might be, like, I don't know, a line in this lyric that I like that might help me, that might help me write my own lyrics, or there might be a kind of feel of the song that I've made that gives me some ideas about the kind of song that I want to write. Or it might be it might tell me that I don't want to do anything like this. I don't want to make a happy song about Ibiza. I want to make an angry song about Dagenham, So I think that it's a kind of, it's a valuable tool for kind of procrastination, and it's a valuable tool for being able to get going on a project creatively, which I think sometimes is the hardest thing. So it does all this stuff, right? So we can make text, make words, can make images, we can make audio, which we just have, and we can make video. We can also do coding and UX and stuff like that. And I've got a couple of examples to show you later on. So it's scary, but exciting, I think. as someone that's always used their hands and eyes to make visual stuff, now words are becoming a really important thing that as visual creatives we have to take more notice of, I think, and you know, words that make stuff that we look at as opposed to words that create images in our minds, like in a novel or words that an actor speaks in a screenplay. But I think it's quite a punk movement, quite a punk piece of technology, because you don't have to learn a musical instrument to make a song like we just have. And you don't have to learn Adobe Creative Suite to make stuff. The quality of the stuff may be, you know, debatable, but it gets you going, right? And in the same way that punk, you didn't have to learn all your scales and all your chords before you could write a song. I think that especially for people that don't have the opportunities to maybe go and do a degree or go to art school or can pay for lessons for things, or don't get lessons in school about, say, fashion design. You know, you can make fashion design with it, or you haven't got any equipment at school, any video cameras, you can make film with it. Or if you haven't got any money yourself, you can make short films without actors or sets or budget. So I think it's a punk thing. I think it's a very positive thing. You can make anything with it, essentially. So here's some stuff I made. Some nice crochet characters, some fashion illustration, some fashion garments, some graphic designy ideas, some product design, some nice photography, some architectural render stuff. This is all done in a software called Midjourney, which is probably becoming the industry standard piece of generative AI software for images. And it works in exactly the same way that I've just showed you with the making the song. You type it in and it produces stuff.
Russell, sorry,
yeah.
to interrupt. We've just got a couple of questions. Do you want me to read those out?
Dive in.
Perfect. So Lucy said, can you use the songs on social media after you've made them?
I think that you probably can. We can have a really quick look at their policy. Let's have a look about, or health, actually, it'll be, won't it? So the interesting thing, I'll get to sort of copyright in a bit, but the interesting thing about a lot of these, because these softwares are fed on human culture, essentially, they cannot really argue about their own copyright, if you see what I mean. So like Midjourney, we're on a subscription model. Once you buy a license for Midjourney, you're free to use it commercially. I'm just looking on the policy now. It says, does Suno own the music I make? Here we go. Maybe I can just paste this in, actually.
Yeah, feel free to.
Yeah, so basically, if you subscribe with a plan, which is, you know, whatever it is, $10 a month. If you subscribe with a Pro or Premier plan, you are the owner of the song and you retain the commercial rights to the music. If you're using a free version, like we've just done, they retain ownership of the song, but you're allowed to use the songs for non-commercial purposes. So to answer the question, yes, you could stick it on social, but no, you couldn't use it for a client if you were on the free version, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to put that in there. There you go. So there's a link to Suno in the chat. Right. What was the other question?
It tied in with that other question, actually, because the second one was the second one was around commercial use. So you answered it in one. Yeah.
So I think that, you know, with all of these companies, they all want your subscription, you know, which are fairly reasonable at the moment. You know, Midjourney's, you can get Midjourney for like $10 a month, something. And Runway is about 30 quid a month. With all of them, if you've got the subscription, you can use it for the stuff that you want to use it for, including commercially. There are some issues with working with clients, I think, which I'll talk about a bit later, in whether they want you to use AI generated images, but we'll get to that. So a couple of things I made with Luma, just to show you how it works. There's new video stuff coming out all the time. Again, just type some words in, made the video. Claude, here's an example. So Claude is text-based bit of AI, where it generates text. So I've put a really quick example in. I'll whiz through it. But I said to Claude, so Claude is like ChatGPT. Give me 3 examples of how you can help with writing, creatively, academically, and structurally. And here we go. The instruction I gave it was write some straplines and copy for a brand of yogurt called Flirk U. Okay. And then it gave me some straplines and it gives me a little bit of editorial as well. Now, again, you might not like any of it. So it'll give you ideas about not using flirk as a kind of as a stand-in for a swear word, like what the flirk or flirking delicious. But it gets over that blank page idea, basically. So again, you put the text in. This gives you text out, not images or video. Academic writing, give me some 150-word explanation of that. It gives me it. Now, in terms of writing and the kind of veracity of, say, dissertations, this is a very tricky area at the moment in sort of academic circles, because I'm very lucky in that I work with students that are visual communication students, a bit like yourself. And we need to see the workings out. So you don't just hand in a logo. We see all the sketches and the ideas, and now including, you know, how did you talk to AI about your ideas and how did it help you? But with academic writing, they don't show the workings out. So I could say, write me a 10,000-word essay on the Italian philosopher Antonio Gramsci, and it would write me a perfectly passable essay that would probably get me a C without me doing anything. So it's causing some issues for some of my colleagues, and they're going to have to change the way that they, you know, brief and assess work. What is very good is this. I use Claude a lot for this, or any text-based AI, helping you with structure. So, you know, the nightmare of, right, I've got to give a presentation to Basecamp Skills. Can you structure me a PowerPoint presentation that's going to cover all these things? And it'll break it all down for you, so you don't have that blank PowerPoint nightmare. So here's an example of social media and political polarization. And it's given me suggestions for sections. It's given me suggestions for subsections, and really how to structure it with an intro, background, etc., coming to a conclusion. So this has already saved me an hour or two of just thinking, how do I structure this thing? There's loads of writing tools. Those are some of them. I can share this. I've got some resources at the end. I can share all the links. But Claude is the best, I think, but Mistral is a good one. Copilot's bunged in with Microsoft Office, and ChatGPT isn't that good, I don't think, but there we are. Image tools, again, there's loads, but Midjourney is the kind of standard, I would say, the industry standard now. You got Leonardo, Dream Studio, DALL-E 2. What's interesting about Firefly, and I'll talk about this a bit later and talk about copyright. Firefly isn't fed with copyrighted images. So it's fed with Adobe stock images or images that Adobe have paid creators to make. So ethically, it's the one that we're going to use with our students because they've all got access to it as part of Adobe Creative Suite, and it gets over that kind of ethical argument about it's taking people's work and making, you know, using it for free, essentially. It's also not as good as Midjourney. So, you know, you got to take your choice. And then loads of video ones. This one on the right, Minimax, has just come out. It's free, totally free at the moment. It's excellent. And it's from a Chinese company behind Alibaba have made it, or they've funded it rather. It's really good. The rest of them are all working on a subscription model. Runway is excellent. Runway is like the Midjourney of video, but you can only make a couple of things before your credits run out. Pika Labs is good if you want to mess around, because I think it gives you 150 credits a day. So if you're interested in, you know, if you've got a project where you've got to make a bit of video for social, you need someone, I don't know, running through the rain. excellent for like little 3-4 second clips. In the main, they make about 4-second clips at the moment, but you know, in a couple of years' time, it'll be making 30-second, minute, maybe longer clips, I reckon. Hotshot's pretty good. LumaLab's pretty good. I mean, they're all very, you know, cool tools. That's the wrong thing. Image, video. Oh, it's gone the wrong way. Wait a minute. That's why. Hang on. Video. Yeah. Claude. Right. Some quick examples of some prompts and what it makes. So this is literally what I typed into Midjourney, and it gives me this. So already, like, I'm not a 3D person. That would take me a couple of days to do in Blender if I made it by scratch and I had to learn Blender, or maybe longer if I did it, completely modeled it myself, maybe shorter if I could find a chair, 3D model online and then adapt it. Microfilm, a record player, a kind of film still, a visual concept for a fanzine about music, an illustration, a comic book illustration. As you see with the prompts, you can be quite detailed. So these ones are all pretty light touch, but this one is quite specific about the shirt cuff is visible. The style is a monochrome noir. No, it's heavily inked. So you can be really specific, and you can actually ask something like Claude or ChatGPT to help you write the prompts. So then you can do things like, you can say, I want this analog film look with a vintage lens, and then it'll specify the lens and the f-stop and the depth of field and stuff. But it's pretty cool. A font based on litter, someone looking at the camera, architectural model thing, kind of ideas for branding. Again, this is good for thinking, yeah, I actually quite like the one on the right because it's a bit like a speaker. I'm going to make something that looks like that. So great for making mood boards, essentially. UX. So there's a tool called Galileo, which there's the text that was put in and there's what it generated. Now, if any of you, you're doing UX design, that's a few hours work to think about what this is on the left, this photography services website. So does that. It does code as well. I'm going to try and do this. So, right, let me try another share. So this is what I typed in to Claude again. Can you code me a web page to show during my presentation of Gen AI to Basecamp Skills? And then I've asked it to use React, which is just a kind of environment where we can actually look at the code. So let me try and do this. Here it is. So this is, right, can we see this?
Yeah.
Claude? Yeah, right. So I type this in and then it says, yeah, no problem. And then it tells me what it's done. Here's the code that's generated, which is here. So here's all the code that it's generated. And what it's done, it said, you know, if I type in AI in education, once it's hooked up to a database, it can generate everything, anything, but let's say AI in art, what does it do? So it changes this thing, right? So it's coded this little page with a button. You can type stuff in and it makes an output under here. I've asked it to make like a Pac-Man game before, and it's made it in 3 seconds. So again, you can get some code generated and start changing it or learning about how it works. But it's again a way of you not having to learn all the code before you can make a thing. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. There we go. Right. So bunch of stuff it can make super quick, and you don't need the technical knowledge. Now, there are some ethical issues that I'd like to run through with you on this. So this is based on feedback I've had from colleagues, from students, etc. Things made with machines aren't authentic. So 1839, they invented the camera. and the portrait painters freaked out and said, you can't use this machine to capture human beings in the way that we can. We're the only people that can do it. Then about 50 years later, the Brownie camera was invented, and which was a mass market camera that anyone could use. And these chaps said, no way, not anyone can use a camera. We're the only ones that are trained to use this machine that can capture portraits. So a very long argument has been going on, say, about can machines help you be creative, essentially. And then, you know, if we go up to the present day in synths and drum machines, and then we think about the 70s and the outcry that, before you're all born, obviously, but the outcry that when synths were invented, it was going to take away work from musicians. I think that there's some real parallels there. And if we think about a band like Kraftwerk, who make beautifully emotional music purely by machines, and I've been doing since the late 60s. Another ethical issue, argument, discussion is they're fed with copyrighted materials. So Midjourney is fed with photos, illustrations, drawings, whatever, designs. So it understands how to make them when you ask it to. That's how large language models learn about what a photo is, a photo of a hat. That's how it knows what a hat is and what a photo is. But Marcel Duchamp in 1914 took a bottle rack that someone else had made and put it in a gallery and said, that's mine now. That's my piece of work. So he did the same with this famous urinal. 3 years later, he took someone else's work and he remixed it into something else. Then Palazzo, 1947, taking bits from magazines, adverts, collaging them together to make art. Hamilton, 56, did this very famous piece, all taken from cutting out magazines. Liechtenstein, copying comic panels and painting them onto canvas. Warhol, obviously, nicking everything and remaking it. An artist called Elaine Francis I never pronounce her name, Sturtevant. She did versions of Andy Warhol's work when Andy Warhol was alive. So she would have a show down the road in Manhattan of versions of his work. So Richard Prince, 10 years ago, took people's Instagram posts and blew them up and said, these are mine, and sold them in a gallery. So my point is that, and sampling, obviously, the invention of the sampler. There's a little video here. Will it play? No, it's not going to play. Okay. The invention of the sampler is all about taking bits of other people's music and making new stuff with them. So they're really old arguments in visual arts and I think latterly in music, but they're really new discussions in design and the kind of written humanities. So if you take, I don't know, the Tesco's logo and call it fresco, but keep it looking exactly the same. You know, you're starting a company, a supermarket called Fresco with the Tesco logo style, then you will be sort of castigated for doing that, stealing their IP and stealing their copyright. So we've never had to have these arguments before about ownership in design. But as I say, they're over 100 years old in the fine arts, and I think this new way of making stuff is making us talk about that. I'm not going to play this, but it's a film from a video from 1990 about when Photoshop came out, and they have a guy on pasting himself in between the then president Ronald Reagan and his wife Nancy Reagan, and they have this huge have a kind of vigorous discussion about the reality of the photograph and how changing the photograph, you're not allowed to change the photograph because the photograph is the real thing. So again, these are really old arguments. People have been rowing about how digital technologies change stuff and make it not authentic. Here's a good documentary about how everything is based on things that have been made before. A little bit on legal and kind of non-disclosure and commercial work. So legally, we can make stuff in AI and use it for commercial projects if we or the company have the right licenses. But if you signed a non-disclosure agreement with, I don't know, let's say Tesco's again, and you're doing their new branding, and you're using something like Firefly to create ideas, like I did some work for ASOS recently, and I used this bit, I used Midjourney to start making some ideas about the kind of thing I'll do for them. Nothing ended up in the final piece, but it was a way of me getting off that, number one block, if you like. But what happens with a lot of these softwares, Adobe, Midjourney, they get uploaded into their systems. With Adobe, the work that you make in AI gets uploaded into Adobe Cloud, and then people at Adobe can see it. With Midjourney, I think unless you have a particular license, the stuff goes back into the mix and other users can see it. So I think that we've got to be a bit careful with where this stuff is going. And if you've signed an NDA, can other people see it? With Adobe, you can save it to your desktop and it doesn't go in the cloud, but it's just something to be aware of. And then commercially, would ASOS, I never know how to say the name, would they have been happy for me to turn in work where elements of it had been made with AI? It's not a discussion I had with them because I didn't intend to make anything using AI that would be client facing. But I think there's a perception that they could get called out by the public for using AI in work. I've noticed that they're not using AI generated models yet, but they will be. So this woman in this image is made by AI. When you look at lots of clothing retail sites, the models aren't real people anymore. So we are moving in that direction. But yeah, there's some kind of commercial / creative discussions, disagreements around the journey from making work to the work being public and client facing. And I think in my case, I use this software to help me with ideation and help me kind of decide what I'm going to make, but it doesn't play any part in the final sort of crafting of stuff. The systems are biased because the people that make them are biased, consciously or unconsciously. So you've got to be really specific about sex and race. If you don't specify, it defaults to white people. So the prompt is photograph of a doctor and 2 nurses. Everybody's white and, gave me slightly horror film vibes as well. I specify race, but it gives me a very different feeling image. It's happy, everyone's sad, happy, blurry, kind of 60s looking. Then I say I'm more specific about each member of the team. And it maybe gives me something a bit more sort of recognizably contemporary. But you have to put those words in. There's a doc here, I won't play it, but Runway are trying to fix that with their own systems. Where you can see here, they talk about if you just put in a doctor or a lawyer, it gives you these guys. It gives you elderly white men. So they recognize it's a problem. I'll show you 2 seconds.
I'm sure when you try to generate a photo or a video, you probably throw in every description in the book. But watch what happens when you leave it all up to the model to decide. So first things first, what is bias? Bias is often unconscious tendency to see, think, or feel about certain things in a certain way. Biases are somewhat hardwired into our brains to help us navigate the world more efficiently. The problem is biases often lead to stereotypes. And you'd think that this is a uniquely human problem, but surprise, it's not.
It is a learning issue. These models tend to default to certain stereotypical representations.
Deepti is a staff research scientist at Runway. She led a critical research effort in understanding and
So they've recognized it's a problem and they're trying to change the way that they do things. Energy, more of us are making images. It uses energy because all the computers use water to fill the cooling systems that cool down the computers. So there's a kind of sustainability issue around it. However, there's a very recent study that suggests, or that is positing that AI systems actually use less CO2 than humans do. So this is the only thing I can find. So obviously, it's not what's the word? Gold at the moment. But it's interesting that people are starting to analyze actually how much energy do I use when I use Photoshop for 8 hours compared to making 8 hours worth of images in Midjourney. Censorship. So we might want to show someone topless. We might want to show some violence. We might want to show someone holding a gun or smoking a cigarette as part of a creative that we're working on. But all of these systems are heavily censored so that you can't make disgusting images and put them on the internet, right? So if you say a photo of, generate me a picture of Donald Trump holding a gun, it will not only not generate someone that looks like Donald Trump, it won't generate the gun either. So you can't do caricatures, real life people, violent situations, sexual situations, etc. However, Elon Musk's Grok image generation system is uncensored. And you only have to go online and look up Grok images, and you can see all sorts of stuff with real people. This is not a real image of Taylor Swift wearing a MAGA hat. So for me, that's hugely problematic, as is the censorship. So there isn't an easy answer to this, but the answer isn't to let anyone make anything with it because people have dark minds. Few case studies of where this stuff is going. I did some work for National Gallery thinking about how young people could use generative AI to feed works from the collection in, and then write some prompts and generate work based on paintings in the National Gallery that reflect themselves somehow. So this was a kind of, I think the prompt was, specified the race and the sex of the girl, but also the style, which was a kind of comic book style, but based on feeding this image into the AI and then writing a prompt. Same with this. So Degas, combing the hair, kind of reimagined into maybe a more sort of contemporary photographic image. Couple of pages of my graphic novel that I'm working on. All the work is going in the script, not on generating the images. My stage after this is to redraw the images by hand. So this is a kind of part of the process that I'm working on to help me create the thing. I'm really interested in generative AI in print and how we can use it to make things that exist physically, not digitally. So this is on the left, bits of this was made in AI, put together in Photoshop, and in the middle is the screen that I made in the screen print labs here at Kingston. And on the right, here's the big A1 print that I made. And you can use an AI program to make very small images massive. It kind of remakes them. It kind of recombines them, if you like, as bigger images. So you've really got a lot of leeway with this thing. You're not just stuck to things that you make in a browser. Here's a couple of things by this agency called the Door Brothers in Berlin. So they used to be kind of motion graphics animators, and they've now switched completely to using AI to make music videos and adverts. I'll play a little bit of this. There we go. So that's a music video they made, and then this is an ad. So you obviously see the implications for, you know, if that concept needed to be shot in real life, you need the club, you need the yacht, the speedboat, you need the actors, you need the beat, you need all these locations, and they could do it without any of that stuff. Now, these are only great because they've got the traditional editing, composition, and creative skills to make them good. So I think that's a really important point, that, you know, this stuff doesn't make great stuff with the words that you put in. It's got to be crafted by people with, you know, creative and technical skills. So this is a really good example. This is a really recent campaign by McCann in Birmingham, where they did a campaign for Thomas Cook and the Marine Conservation Society. And the brief was, people are leaving their inflatable toys in the sea, and they're being, you know, eaten and causing distress to the mammals and fish. So they started with a sketch. So they had this idea of a deflated whale to get across the idea. So they sketched it, and then the images in the middle and on the right are stuff they made in a package like Midjourney, where they're trying to visualize what would it look like if the whale was a rubber deflated toy on the beach. Now, they understood that, okay, it's kind of going to work, but this isn't giving us the results that we want. So then they bought a model of a whale, 3D model, and then they deflated it using whatever package they used, Blender or something, and then they rendered it. And then that's what ends up in the finished campaign. And then there's other versions of it. So it's a good example of that how AI can help you in the ideation part. But this kind of, you know, fakey rubber thing doesn't end up in the final creative, because it wouldn't at all have the same impact. It's won a couple of awards, this show, this ad. And then, as well as agencies that are now, I think it's important that agencies are starting to be kind of open about their using this stuff to help them with ideas. This is an agency that they've just launched, and they are only making stuff using AI. So they're being quite open about the fact that here's a new tool that can help us make ideas in lots of different directions. Like the Door Brothers as well. If you look at their LinkedIn or their YouTube, they're going on about it all the time. They're doing like speculative fashion runway shows and stuff as well. Loads of resources here. I can share these with Tor, and you got all the links, images, tools, video, softwares, and lots of the references that I've got in the piece as well. Drop me a line if you want to chat, and I'm really happy to chat for a little bit.
Oh, thank you so much. That was brilliant. We've got a couple of questions, so I will jump to those. So one from Claire was, has AI affected the modelling industry with print?
Yes. So especially at the kind of, not in high end, you know, so you know, Dior are not using AI generated models, but Boohoo and Misguided and all of those sorts of brands are absolutely using AI generated people to show the clothes because it's cheap.
Yeah.
Cheaper,
They're
you
all
know.
fast fashion brands.
Yeah. I could do it now in a minute. Or we hire a studio, we get a model, we hire a photographer, and we take at least half a day to make the images.
Yeah.
And then the model goes home and we realize we forgot to take a photo of her wearing a baseball cap. You know, so yeah, I think, and that's going to become more and more prevalent because the human, it's called something stupid like synth. It's got a kind of futuristic name, but basically making synthetic humans essentially. But what was I going to say with I've lost my thread. I was thinking about models and oh yeah, so in China, there's now on shopping channels, there's now they're not even deep fakes, so they're AI created shopping channel presenters that they're on the shopping channel when they go, and we got this lovely wallet and it's got this and you can put all this stuff in here and how much is that, Judy? Well, this retails for $10.99 a month. That they're being hosted by AI generated models because the models can run 24 hours a day.
Right.
Humans can't. So I think it costs something like 1,500 quid to make the model. And they'd already generated, I think, an extra 30 grand's worth of sales in the first week because they're always on. And what they're doing is they're creating models with the agreement of other presenters. So they're making these kind of digital twin versions of the presenters as well. I mean, we are getting into, we're in Blade Runner science fiction land, but it will affect models, TV presenters, all that, not on the BBC and not on major channels, but on those at the moment kind of digital outlets. And we've already got, like pop stars that are AI generated in Japan and etc. There's only going to be a million YouTubers that will be synthetic for sure.
Cool, brilliant. Jack, so we've got a question from Jack. How do you feel about getting the AI to do the prompting for you for the thing you want to create? I find I get better results that way.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it. It's just using another tool. I think again that, if you have no ideas, it's not going to help you. That's really the key thing to think about this. If I say, right, so I'm reading this at the moment by Donna Tartt. Is that back to front? I can't mirror it. Anyway, Donna Tartt, the little friend, right? I'm reading this at the moment. And it's about a little girl who's trying to find out who murdered her brother years earlier. But if I say to Claude, write me a novel, I don't have any ideas, but write me a novel, or write me a novel about a girl trying to find the murderer of her brother. It's going to be, I'm not going to swear, it's going to be rubbish, right? Yeah. But if you say, help me write some prompts to think about the structure of a novel, I want it to tell this kind of character arc, it can help you with all that stuff. But it's never going to replace human curation, creativity, but in the same way that, not many of us are writing letters by hand now, we're using email. It's just another thing like that, so it may be that it replaces, for short filmmakers, it replaces them buying a camera and getting actors and locations for their first kind of ideas that they want to try out. And they're going to use something like Runway, but it won't replace actors and films and stunts and scripts and dialogue and blah, blah, blah.
Cool.
But yeah, go for it. I've asked the question.
Brilliant.
Give it a go.
Yeah. Next question from Isadora. I pronounced that correctly. Do you know what kind of roles and career paths there are in AI, and should more people get involved?
Well, it's going to change all those it's changing lots of jobs, right? So if your job is making presentation decks, making PowerPoints, then it's changing your job now. If your job is coding, it's changing your job now. If your job is creating commercial visuals, it's changing your job now. So I think that any job that, you know, if your job is a plasterer or a carpenter, it's maybe not necessarily going to have an impact on your job right now. But if you're in front of a screen doing something, it's going to have a fundamental effect on the way you do your job. So at the moment, today, I could feed all my emails into an AI and say, right, answer all my emails. And it would answer them in the way that I answer them. It would know which emails I always delete and never look at. It would know the ones that I reply to immediately, the ones that I give it a few days, etc. So I could not answer my emails, and I would be very comfortable with this thing, knowing it would reply in the way that I do. You can also set it up to say, deal with all the emails, but just put them in draft. And then I get to look at them and check them.
So you can review them first.
Yeah. If your job is at all doing like PA, any job like that, but also Photoshop, video, copywriting, as we looked at some examples, I think music making, there's lots of producers that are using this stuff to start generating ideas for beats and things now. Writing, you know, I'm writing this graphic novel. My Claude is helping me with not only thinking about sort of character arcs, but as a thing to chat to that isn't going to say, stop talking about your comic. I want to go for a pint. You know, you can say, what do you think about this thing? And have this kind of conversation with it. You know, Microsoft call their thing a co-pilot, which is a very good description of what this thing is. You know, it's something that will just help you chat about it. It's not necessarily going to do any work for you, but you can bounce ideas off. So
like an extra source you can talk to without essentially someone else.
Yeah, and a thing that isn't going to say, what a load of crap, shut up, you know, what you're talking about. So I think that you should, if you're going to go into some kind of digital industry, whatever that is, you need to begin learning a bit about these tools. You don't have to become an expert, but I would play with a writing one, a video one, an image one, and just see what they do. Because you know, get if you've got Microsoft Office, it's bundled into there. If you've got Adobe Creative Suite, you can use Firefly, which is image generation, and then they're going to bring out video generation soon as well, like this year. So the tools are out there to play with, and you can play with all of them for nothing to a certain degree. And then Runway will say, you've made 3 videos, now you need to get a subscription. Or Midjourney will say, you've used up your quota for the month, etc. But you can play with all of them a little bit, you know. And I think that the mistake that some people make is that they think it's going to make the perfect thing the first time you type something in. And it isn't how it works. You might generate 200 images and you might use bits from 3 of them, and then you'll put them together in Photoshop. Or you might make 200 songs and you'll use some bits of it. But I think that it's very good if you type in a cat wearing a space helmet on the moon, then it'll make that and it'll look like that. But we don't want to make that. But you know, you can make that sort of very specific crap image perfectly, which is why the Midjourney homepage is full of that and like princesses with swords and whatever. In the main, you know, the people that are playing with stuff are the nerds. And the nerds are generally, and I'm speaking as a creative nerd, the nerds aren't kind of trained in creativity, and that's why all this stuff looks rubbish. But it's beginning to change, you know, as the tools become more pervasive and part of our everyday lives. So yes, play with them.
Brilliant. And then we've got a question from Claire. What do you think are the dangers of AI?
The broad question, like Skynet and Terminator. I'm not sure the dangers. I mean, what are the dangers of Grammarly? You know, what are the dangers of spell check? I'm not sure. I mean, I'm being a bit facetious, right? Elon Musk's Grok thing is dangerous because you can generate an image of anything. You could generate an image of someone doing crime or some violent act. And if you know, that picture of Taylor Swift that I showed you, if you just saw that out of context, you'd think she was wearing a Make America Great Again hat. So I think that we have to assume that any image isn't real now, or any video isn't real, and we have to look at where the source of the video is. And if the BBC are showing you an image, a trusted news outlet, an online one or a broadcast one, then you can trust the image, but because of the person that's distributing the image. But I think if you just see something online, it's not real. That's what I assume now. That's not real until someone proves to me that it's real because they've done the fact checking behind it. But yeah, it's dangerous politically because obviously you can make images that can cause problems. It's dangerous culturally. I don't think it's dangerous kind of creatively, and the argument about taking jobs. No, you know, I used to design CD-ROM content in 1997, and then the internet came along and there was no more CD-ROM industry. So technology took away my job, but I just had to keep moving on with the skills that I've got. And then I used to work as a web designer. And then Tumblr and Squarespace, all those things came along and really took away the vast majority of web design jobs because you didn't need a web designer because you just could do a drag and drop thing. So it's just another step in how technology changes industries. But for every job that stops existing, let's say the catalog model for who's in, I don't know, the Littlewoods catalog or whatever, they're replaced by generated people. There'll be another 1,000 jobs that are created because of that technology. So I think that and I've been working in the industry for about 30 years now. When technology removes one thing, it produces a lot more opportunities. And I think that's what this is doing.
Perfect. There are a couple more questions, but I'm a little bit conscious of time.
I can take these 2 questions and that's it.
Okay, perfect. So one from Dana. As an art director, how was a day in your role in the different companies you work at? How was the day in your Dana? If you're online, I don't know if you want to elaborate.
Sorry, it's because I'm on my iPad, so I don't really have like a thing to write.
Okay.
Basically, the question is like, how is your day to day as an art director, and like, because I believe like different companies require different things. So yeah, like, what do you do? Like, what are your duties?
It really depends on the day. You know, some days I mean, you're collaborating, I think, is the main thing that you do as an art director, someone who's part of a team that are helping to realize an idea on a brief for whoever that is. So one day you might be talking to a coder or a creative technologist or a photographer, or you might be, I think that the days when I started out, I was a real hands-on designer, and I still am a kind of hands-on art director. But when I started out, the art director literally directed art. Can you just make it look a bit more? So they didn't have any technical skills, which I was amazed at when I started working in advertising. But those days are gone now. So art directors who can't make stuff, there may be some still surviving in some agencies, but in the main, there's no way. You'll never get a job without being able to demonstrate that you can have an idea and make it. And I think that even more so now that these tools are around that let you make stuff with less skills. So the idea of someone in a beret kind of just sitting there going, no, make it look more like this is like Mad Men days. You know, those days are gone now. So in the main, you're making stuff either hands on yourself or you're helping other people kind of realize what the creative director's vision is and what the agency's vision is for the project. But that's working in a team and, as I say, a million different things.
Okay, thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. And I guess the other two comments are more kind of statements, just someone's mentioned around deepfakes already being in use.
Yeah.
Fake news and propaganda, and also Jack's just put, I guess there's a danger to children AI, i.e. writing a test using AI.
Don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there are people using AI to make disgusting things.
Yeah.
And, you know, the dark web is obviously, if you wanted to look there, you would find all that stuff. So, but humans are humans. What can we do? You know.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. It's been great having you on, Russell. If you wouldn't mind sharing those the list of resources, I can share those out with the learners.
I'll ping it over right now.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you have a nice afternoon.
Thank you. Nice to see you all.
Yeah,
Bye.
take care. See you soon.
Bye.